Thank you.
As I've grown through my 20s, I've made a concerted effort to push myself out of my comfort zone when it comes to the creative works I experience, including video games. When I was 12, I spent my entire summer playing a single game, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. My freshman year of college, I put hundreds of hours into shiny hunting and Pokemon Sword. To even think of doing either of these things now that I'm 25 sounds like a goddamn nightmare. Look, if you derive joy from continuing to invest time into one game or even just a handful of games for years, bless your heart. I hope nobody takes that away from you. For me, though, there's just too much I want to play. We live in an era of unprecedented access to video games of all generations. It can be hard to pick what to spend our precious time on. There's always a chance you just don't like the game or it doesn't connect with you. It can be a bit discouraging to feel like you wasted your time and money. However, when you do find something special, when a game just grips you and doesn't let go, it's truly one of my favorite feelings. Resident Evil 4 released in January of 2005 on the Nintendo GameCube, with a PlayStation 2 version coming around 9 months later. My dad did have a GameCube at the time, so there is an alternate universe where we had this game in our house at some point, but he was mostly into sports games and I was a preschooler, so it was generally Mario or nothing for me. I purchased the Nintendo Switch port of Resident Evil 4 on sale back in 2023 when I was living in Santa Cruz. I had a lot going on back then, so this game quietly slid into my backlog until the time was right. But its time did indeed come, 3 years later. Do you ever just play a game and before you've even finished it, you know that you're experiencing something special? It's happened to me a few times in recent memory. Nier Automata, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, and now Resident Evil 4. This game just blew me away. I can't stop thinking about it, I can't stop playing it, and I can't stop getting other people to try it. To start with what is most immediately obvious about the game, the graphics and general atmosphere are incredible. The early 2000s and the sixth generation of video game consoles, in my opinion, marked the point when 3D games looked just good enough to pull off both realistic and cartoony art directions, with Resident Evil 4 falling cleanly into the former. The game still looks great to this day on GameCube, albeit at a lower native resolution than the more modern ports. A funny thing about the game that you might not know unless you played this version is that while the GameCube natively displayed the game at a 4:3 aspect ratio, Resident Evil 4 is actually manually letterboxed to a more modern 16:9 aspect ratio, with black bars at the top and bottom of the screen at all times. Playing the game on a modern HD TV is pretty funny because so much of the screen ends up unused unless you manually zoom in using your TV's settings. With all that said, just go with the modern ports of RE4 if you're looking to experience the game now. Only seek out the old versions if you're weird and sentimental like I am. I can't compliment the game's environment designs enough. Each and every place you visit is so memorable, and thanks to the game's phenomenal pacing, you spend just enough time in each one before you move on to see something new. Between myself and my friends who have played the game, I found the controls and combat to be the most divisive aspect. Make no mistake, the game does not control like a modern shooter. In order to shoot, you need to raise your weapon, which functionally locks you in place and puts you on a swivel to aim. This really rubbed one of my friends the wrong way. The controls put him off the game as a whole. He just could not get used to it. For me, it did take me a while to acclimate, but I've grown to really love Resident Evil 4's combat. While it is far more action than survival horror for the majority of its runtime, there is still an element of ammo conservation at play, so being able to plant my feet and make sure my bullets really count just makes sense to me. There are also just so many satisfying elements, from the ways enemies react to where you shoot them, to Leon's melee attacks, to the variety of weapons at your disposal. It truly is far more dynamic than first impressions may suggest. The story and characters don't do anything particularly groundbreaking, but they are incredibly fun. The game's tone reminds me of the Evil Dead movies, a horror backdrop used to deliver intense thrills and campy humor in equal measure. Leon has quickly become one of my favorite protagonists, not because he's particularly complex, but just because he's so much damn fun to watch and play as. I love that the villains will hijack Leon's communications device and they just have a back and forth shit-flinging contest.
Since you're here, why don't I introduce you to it? It should keep you busy.
Can't remember the name, huh? A senior moment, perhaps.
Oh.
This game genuinely makes me laugh way more than I ever would have anticipated. It's honestly hard for me to think of an aspect of the game that I don't like. I guess the occasional QuickTime events are kind of silly, but I find them to just be part of the game's charm and character. A big thing for a lot of people, from what I understand, is Ashley, who you have to protect and escort through a large portion of the game. Yeah, she screams a lot and doesn't have much of a personality beyond that, but from a gameplay perspective, I actually like that she introduces a new element of vulnerability to your exploration, since it can feel pretty easy to almost feel invincible as Leon, aside from the occasional encounter with a chainsaw man. Ultimately, Resident Evil 4 really is something special, even over 2 decades after its release. As someone who historically has very little interest in horror, RE4 has already convinced me to give more entries in the series a try. It's games like this that remind me why I have to keep exploring new games. You never know if the next game you try will end up being a lifelong favorite. I made a video in May of 2023 about my favorite video games of all time, and looking back on it now, almost the entire list is different from what I would say are my favorites now. But that's just life, isn't it? We are in a constant state of flux. To resist change would be to deny yourself the opportunity to grow. I can't say I know when the next game will come along that makes me feel the way this one did, but I'm going to keep searching for that next spark.